EU says it may veto weak COP30 agreement over emissions cuts. In Belém, Brazil, European diplomats warned that the European Union will block the final COP30 agreement unless it contains stronger commitments to cut greenhouse gas emissions. The bloc's anger centers on a draft presented by Brazil's COP30 presidency on Friday, which they say fails to meet EU red lines on climate finance and omits any clear plan to phase out fossil fuels. Climate Chief Wop Hoekstra, speaking in a closed-door session, described the text as lacking science and ambition, promising that the EU will use its veto power if the deal is not tightened. EU ministers have been instructed to rally national support for a possible bloc, marking a rare step in climate diplomacy. Meanwhile, Brazil's COP30 President André Aranja Correa do Lago called for unity around the Paris Agreement, even as the United States has withdrawn from the accord. A second EU diplomat noted that, without U.S. participation, the BRICS nations, China, Russia, India, Brazil and South Africa, are shaping a BRICS COP, pushing a text that favors their interests. Climate analyst Alden Mayer warned the summit could collapse under such divisions. A widely supported roadmap to monitor each country's fossil fuel phase-out, endorsed by over 80 nations, is conspicuously absent, highlighting the split between oil-rich states and those demanding more aggressive climate action. South Africa's lead negotiator questioned why discussions are centered on issues not present in the draft, while China's Climate Hub director pointed to domestic political pressures and even references to former U.S. President Donald Trump's trade threats as factors clouding ambition. Vulnerable nations argue that without a clear pathway to meet Paris targets, the summit will leave them with an inadequate legacy. Panama's chief negotiator labeled the current proposal offensive, citing the lack of language on fossil fuel phase-out, deforestation roadmaps and a global adaptation finance goal. The EU is also pressing for a threefold increase in adaptation finance for poorer countries by 2030, a target many donors deem unrealistic, with 2035 suggested as a more feasible horizon. Hoekstra concluded that the EU is ready to move beyond its comfort zone on climate financing, but only if the final text reflects the urgency the bloc believes the planet requires.